James Carter had always thought of himself as a really fortunate person. After years of battling with loneliness as a result of the death of his wife, he had finally decided to open his heart to the possibility of adoption. It was via these means that he came into contact with Leila, a 10-year-old girl with sparkling eyes and a fiery intelligence who seldom discussed her background. Throughout the years, she turned into his whole universe, and the reason he smiled once again. However, Leila had not taken any traces, just as if she had never been a part of the world. The anguish was intolerable to endure. Was he a letdown from her? It was possible that she did not love him as much as he loved her. However, Leila disappeared on the day when she became 18 years old. Not a note. There was no call. Leaving behind nothing except a chamber that was empty and a father who was broken. James looked in every possible place, including her friends, her college, and even the police. The fact of the matter is that I never gave up seeking for my biological mother. In addition, when I located her, I came into a frightening discovery. But she did not give up on me. Someone took her away from me. "I am so sorry, Dad," she said. "My duty was to safeguard you. And the individuals who were responsible for it are still in existence. I couldn't take the chance of them discovering you as well." In the past, she had been a patient in this hospital, where she had been wrongly committed by a powerful family that want to keep her still. She had exposed their dishonesty and the atrocities they had committed. It was a risky situation. Threats were made, and there were near misses. But justice was ultimately victorious in the end. As soon as she attempted to expose them, she was labeled insane and placed in private confinement. In order to completely cut off any connection, Leila was taken away and put for adoption. Meet me in the place where it all started, if you are prepared. Utilize the key. For years, she had been putting together the pieces of the truth. When she was eventually able to locate her mother's documents, she came to the realization that the same individuals were still in power, and that they would do everything to protect their secrets. When the world is trying to break you, it is the people that fight for you that you can count on, regardless of the circumstances. Nothing and no one will ever be able to take you away from me again. After a year had passed, a solitary envelope reached its destination in the mail. James had never heard of this location before. The contents of the package included a key, a picture of a lady whom James did not recognize, and a message written in Leila's handwriting that read, "The scars were rather deep." For the last year, Leila had been hiding, searching for proof, and always keeping a watchful eye on her surroundings. During that same period of time, James had aged by 10 years, and his heart was filled with anxiety. I was under the impression that I had to handle this situation by myself. Still, I ought to have put my faith in you. The structure was falling apart, and the corridors seemed to be haunted by things from the past. He discovered a door that was locked quite deep in the basement. The key was the right one. Please accept my apologies, Dad, if you are reading this. I was forced to leave. You, Leila Carter, have just scraped the surface of the situation. And James, if you really love her, you will convince her to stop digging. The young lady, who was identified as Leila's biological mother, was captured in the shot as she stood in front of an old mental facility that had been abandoned on the outskirts of the town. Desperation compelled him to go there, and he did so with the key clenched tightly in his hand. Leila, who was injured but still alive, was found within the cramped room. With tears in her eyes, she ran into his arms. After that, she broke the news to him. A map was shown on her laptop, and it showed a distant village in Alaska that was surrounded by a red circle. The biological mother of Leila had not voluntarily given her up for adoption. He gathered his belongings, retrieved his old handgun, which he hadn't used since the passing of his wife, and made reservations for the next aircraft that would take him north. However, Leila had acquired the unyielding mentality that her mother had. Upon entering, Leila was slumped over a desk, and documents were scattered all over the place. The moment she laid eyes on him, her expression contorted in terror. A few abandoned mines could be seen scattered over the countryside, and the town that Leila had identified was nothing more than a ghost community. By this point, James was no longer just a bereaved parent. It was a fit of rage. On the other hand, I have recently discovered something much more terrible. I am required to do this. Do not keep up with me. My life is no longer the only thing that is under danger. The proof that Lila had provided, together with his own tenacity, led them to the authorities. The genuine authorities, as opposed to the dishonest officials who had hidden the truth. There were also additional facilities which were experimental. People were not just being silenced, rather they were being used as subjects in experiments. It wasn't only that my mother was locked up. As a test subject, she was used. The influential family was brought to light. After her death, Lila's mother's name was cleared on the record. Is that Lila? It was finally her return home. Within the confines of their living room, Lila gazed at James with tears in her eyes as they stood there. James drew her into a bear hug to comfort her. I am your mother's daughter. He pushed Lila in the direction of the rear entrance. Both of them had a sense of completeness for the first time in a year. It's because family is more than simply blood. Please take this. Examine the evidence. Make them public, regardless of the circumstances. Throughout the weeks, the headlines screamed. Prominent family arrested in decades-old conspiracy, wrongfully institutionalized. Woman's story finally heard. Adopted teen's courage exposes corruption. There was a sense of hollowness to the win. Despite the fact that Lila and James were lauded as heroes, on the other hand, they were once again united. That is what they believed. James discovered something nestled under a picture album one evening, while he was sorting through old boxes, which included things like drawings from Lila's youth and prizes from school, a single USB disc that is not labeled. During the process of plugging it into his laptop, his fingers were shaking. A single video file was played down. During the shadows, a person wearing a mask sat with their voice distorted. You believe that it is over? Is it your belief that they were the only ones? The screen instantly went dark. It was as if James's blood had frozen. He ran to Lila's room, but by the time he arrived, it was empty. There was also a message on her pillow that read, "A second time, I'm sorry, Dad. I was under the impression that we were secure." James rolled the paper up into a ball with his hand. No, not once again. In spite of the fact that James was not a young guy, he was a determined one. Alaska had a harsh environment, with its never-ending trees, icy winds, and a stillness that was so profound that it seemed as if the whole earth was holding its breath. Smoke appeared in the distance at that moment. James discovered a cabin after following the path, and the entrance of the cottage was slightly ajar. "Dad, you have no business being here." Nevertheless, before she could say anything further, headlights broke through the darkness that was outside. There was a black SUV that came to a halt. A frantic murmur could be heard coming from Lila as she grasped James's arm. There were several mental hospitals besides the one in question. James had a feeling of sickness, and these people, they're still doing it. Doors of the SUV were opened. James did not show any reluctance. Run now. Her eyes were filled with tears as she shook her head. "I won't leave you again." "It is imperative that you do it," he continued as he pressed the handgun into her fingers. The snow outside made the sound of footsteps crunching. With his pulse hammering, James turned his back to face the entrance. They were not allowed to take her by him. It's time not at all.